Be ready, guys. 5 seconds. Start. Sir, the Honorable Finance Minister has told us why he has thought fit to bring these finance bills in the middle of the year. The plan contemplated a tax of about Rs 400 crores, and now that the Finance Minister does not want to take recourse to deficit financing, naturally the tax has got to be increased, and it now comes to about Rs 1300 crores. Therefore, money must come from wherever it can be had, and some sort of tax has to be imposed. Now the proposals have to be examined from that point of view. Some people have acclaimed the proposals as very necessary and well considered, while others have found ground for criticizing them. Whatever may be the taxation measures, if they are applied properly and with sympathy, even measures which are not liked can be made to be appreciated and less objected to. I have no doubt, as the Finance Minister himself said, that he will see that the measures are sympathetically administered, and if that is done, most of the objections that might be and have been put forward to the proposals would be removed. As you may remember, when the 5-year plan was discussed in this House and in the other House, some of the members felt that perhaps a very optimistic view might have been taken of the resources that may be available for carrying out the 5-year plan. Even now, people feel that the plan has got to be implemented, and a lot depends on the implementation of the plan, but the question is, have we taken note correctly of the resources that are available, and have we not overestimated and taken rather an optimistic view? But implementation of the plan will not be very much affected if instead of 5 years, a few more months are taken to implement it. What I mean to say is, if the resources are not sufficient to carry out the plan in 5 years, there is no harm in increasing the period by a few months, so that there may not be a very heavy strain on our resources, and so that things may not go wrong on account of the heavy strain that may be put thereon. Another thing that can be looked into very conveniently is whether or not a certain amount of savings can be effected. So far as the proposals in the two bills are concerned, I have one or two suggestions to make. One is as regards the capital gains tax. Most of the exemptions that were in the previous act have been removed, but I feel that so far as capital gains in respect of compulsory acquisition by government is concerned, that should still continue to be exempted. When a person sells his capital asset and make a gain, which is called unearned profit, he may be taxed, and perhaps he will have no justification in raising any objection. But when a property is acquired which he does not want to sell, but which is acquired under compulsion at the instance of the government for the use of the government, in the case of such a compulsory acquisition, there is no real justification for making the man pay capital gains tax also, especially when he never wanted to part with his property, and in fact he objected thereto, but had to part with it because the authorities wanted him to do that. That is one small suggestion so far as capital gains tax is concerned, and I think in a case where compulsory acquisition takes place, it is for the government to consider whether or not they will think of giving relief to the unfortunate person who may have to part with his property in spite of himself. Another suggestion that I have to make is that so far as compulsory deposit is concerned, the people who are conservative and who have put in careful and prudent management and have built up resources generally use them for the purpose of increasing the volume of business and stabilizing the position of the company, but here the position is just if you are going to penalize those companies which have prudently managed, which have been managed in a conservative manner, and which have not frittered away their resources. Some consideration should be shown to such companies that have built up resources and have utilized them in expanding their business, so that they may not be called upon to put in these compulsory deposits. Otherwise, wasteful expenditure will be encouraged, and the management which have not been taking proper care for conserving their resources will get a premium. Then my friend said that equity shares had increased in value to the extent of 150 times depending on the number of years. Here the dividend that is going to be taxed is on the basis of the paid up capital, which does not take into account the reserves built up over a number of years. Sir, the House will remember that over the past few years that we have been here, we have been demanding a change in the structure of our taxation, and it is only this year we have heard the finance minister announce that the time has come when the tax structure of our country must be changed. What exactly is the change in the tax structure that is going to be made still remains to be seen. Only the other day, on the 3rd November in Kolkata, Mr. Pant, chairman of the Finance Commission, was stating that the financial stability of the state and the central governments, as well as the successful implementation of the 11th five-year plan, depended to a large extent on a radical change of outlook of the people towards taxation. In that speech, he also made it clear that he would expect the common people to pay more taxes. Now, if the change of structure of the taxation system is to be sought in order to continue to exact the limited savings of the common man, deprive him of the necessities of life, then I would not be in favor of any such change. If, however, the tax structure were to be changed for a policy that would make the rich pay for the 11th five-year plan, I would be in favor of it. I make it clear that it has never been the contention of the people that they would not bear the responsibility of building up the country. In fact, our workers in the factories are sweating day in and day out so that our industrial production goes up. If today we claim higher industrial output, it is precisely because our men in the wheels of industry have so behaved themselves and have so worked for the well-being of the country that despite the machinations and intrigues of the capitalist class, despite their greed for more and more profits, it has been possible to bring about a sizable increase in the industrial output. The credit entirely belongs to the working people of our country. Similarly, if in the agrarian sector of our economy, the production of food has gone up simultaneously, raising thereby the total national income, that is also because of the fact that the peasants, however poor, however destitute, and however suffering, have responded to the call of the government. It is only because of their devotion to duty for the cause of the country that we are today in a position to claim before the whole world that our agricultural production has gone up. I say this because we must remember that it is the people who are paying with their blood, paying with their sweat for the rebuilding of our country's economy, for the rejuvenation of our nation. Our capitalist friends who regard themselves as the captains of industry and have produced more shipwrecks and happy sailings would please note this particular fact, that it is these men